Before I introduce our speaker, I'd like to announce that we will be having a conference following the luncheon in room 800, oriented to the juvenile justice programs, the faith-based initiative that Mr. Lynch and Ms. Valencia will be here to talk about. And anyone here who is interested in participating in that conversation, please go to room 800. It's on the 8th floor, and you go off the elevator. It's the first room on the left, the steel room, for a conversation following the luncheon. It will start shortly after 1:30. It's my distinct pleasure to introduce Anita Alvarez, who's the state's attorney for Cook County. Anita, she made history when she was chosen by voters in 2008 to serve as the Cook County state's attorney. The first woman and first Latina elected to this position. She's also the first career prosecutor to hold this post, having spent her entire legal career serving victims of violent crime. In her capacity as state's attorney, Mrs. Alvarez leads the second largest prosecutor's office in the nation, supervising more than 1,600 employees whose primary responsibilities include prosecuting violent crime and seeking justice on behalf of crime victims and their families. Under her leadership, the state's attorney's office has been principal force in drafting and enacting many important public safety initiatives that have been signed into law. Mrs. Alvarez has also formed specialized units within the state's attorney's office to enhance prosecution of cases involving crimes such as mortgage fraud, consumer fraud, public corruption, and human trafficking. She's also authored the Illinois Safe Children's Act, a sweeping law that enhances protections for juveniles caught up in the sex trade and provides additional legal tools for police and prosecutors to target those who prostitute children. Mrs. Alvarez was soundly re-elected in her position this past November, garnering the largest vote total of all of the county-wide candidates. So with that, let me introduce Anita Alvarez.
Good afternoon, and thanks for having me here to address the Rotary Club. And I see my buddy Pedro back there. I want to say hello. And if you don't know this, I was at an event last October. It was a fun event, and it was a fundraiser. And Pedro couldn't get out of the kitchen because his job was to make paella for everyone. And if you don't know this, he makes a very mean paella. It was delicious. No one wanted to leave the kitchen at that point once it was done. So thank you. So good afternoon. Thanks for inviting me. I'm here with you at your regular meeting of the Rotary Club to discuss the topic of youth violence and juvenile justice. Issues that are extremely important, obviously, to my office, to me personally, to the entire criminal justice system here in Cook County. I wanted to begin my remarks by providing you with just a brief overview, description of our office and how it's structured in the state's attorney's office, because we have a lot of different duties and responsibilities throughout the entire county. With nearly 900 attorneys and 1,500 employees, we are the second largest prosecutor's office in the nation, second only to Los Angeles, which outnumbers us by maybe about 100 attorneys. The assistant state's attorneys in my office prosecute all misdemeanor and felony crimes committed here in Cook County, which is actually statutorily more than other prosecutors' offices. For example, Los Angeles only handles the felonies. They don't do the misdemeanors. We do everything, including traffic, all the juvenile and all the misdemeanor crimes. In addition to direct criminal prosecution, we file legal actions to enforce child support orders. We litigate on behalf of consumers and the elderly, and we assist thousands of victims of domestic violence each and every year. We also serve as legal counsel for all Cook County government, one of the largest counties, obviously, in the nation. The office is divided into 7 different bureaus. We have our criminal bureau, which is our biggest bureau, obviously at 26 in California, all the suburban courthouses. We have our narcotics bureau, our special prosecutions bureau, civil actions, investigations, and our administrative bureau. The juvenile justice bureau also is one of our largest bureaus. Our juvenile justice bureau is dedicated to providing for the safety and the best interest of children who are either abused or neglected. So we handle not just the delinquency, but the children who are abused and neglected. Our other main responsibility is to prosecute the offenders, right, the juvenile offenders, and support the victims in the community that are affected by the juvenile offenders. The Juvenile Justice Bureau has 2 divisions. The first is the Protection Division, and that reviews, as I said, and prosecutes cases in which children are alleged to be abused or neglected by their family. The Child Protection Division screens, files, and prosecutes civil cases in which minors under the age of 18 are alleged to be abused or neglected because of the action or inaction of the adults who are their parents or their caretakers, or because they do not have parents to take care of them. In extreme cases, we may seek to terminate parental rights when it is in the best interest of the children. The second is the Delinquency Division, which is probably what you hear about more. I think people forget that we have the abuse and neglect side over at our juvenile court. So the Delinquency Division reviews and prosecutes offenses committed by juveniles. The Delinquency Division screens, files, and prosecutes crimes committed by youths under the age of 17 who commit felony crimes, and as of January 2010, all juveniles under the age of 18 who commit misdemeanor crimes. In extreme cases, we present evidence to demonstrate that juveniles should be held accountable as an adult in the criminal court system. And those types of cases, as we refer to as automatic transfer cases, cases that even though they come into the juvenile system, they automatically get transferred to the adult system for murders or shootings, attempted murders, cases like that, which are automatically transferred to the adult division. We also have a victim witness unit assigned to the Bureau to work and support the victims of these crimes over at juvenile court. The victim witness specialists in this unit also staff the Victim Support Center at the Juvenile Court Building on the Near West Side. So before I discuss the specific types of programs that my office is involved in to try to address the topic of youth violence, I'd like to take a moment to just discuss the topic of violence in general, and particularly the gun violence, which unfortunately we've been seeing, not just here in the city of Chicago, but all over Cook County and the neighboring counties as well. And I understand that the Rotary Club has established a peace committee, a partner with other organizations to promote alternative programming for young people. And I would like to thank you and commend you for those efforts, because that's what we do at juvenile court under the concept of balance and restorative justice. But everywhere I travel in Cook County these days, I'm always asked about the problem of guns and gun violence and the increase in the violent crime that seems to be unfolding on our streets each and every day. From my perspective as state's attorney, I believe very strongly that the swift, consistent, and fair prosecution of people who illegally carry weapons is critical. We are currently working in partnership with Mayor Emanuel and the Chicago Police Superintendent Gary McCarthy to pass new state legislation that would increase the penalties for gang members who are arrested on the street of Chicago with weapons. I believe that the community stands with us in this tough stance on illegal gun possession. I think we have to do something to make sure that the people who shouldn't have the guns in their hands don't have the guns in their hand, and if they are, then they need to be held responsible for what they do and the shootings that they are committing each and every day on our streets. We were able to pass a law 2 years ago now, well, actually coming up on 3, the Valadez Law. The Valadez Law is actually named after Chicago police officer Alejandro Valadez. If you remember, Officer Valadez was killed in Inglewood responding to a call of shots fired. He was responding to a call of shots fired, and he was killed himself as he was attempting to talk to a civilian on the street. That particular statute, we attempted to pass in the beginning of the legislative session, and it didn't go anywhere. It died in committee, and basically what our focus was to focus on the known gang members found on the street with a loaded weapon, and to make that charge a non-probationable offense, because in the past it was probationable. It didn't pass. Officer Valadez was then killed that summer. So we reintroduced this bill in the legislative, in the veto session, and renamed it the Valadez Law, and it passed. And that law, we believe, helps us tremendously with the gang members, and those are the people who are out there committing the crimes, to hold them responsible and make that particular possession of an illegal gun non-probationable. And so we've had over 500 cases charged under the Valadez Law, and what we've seen is that those offenders are actually not choosing to go to trial but pleading guilty. And we believe that's important for the safety of all of us citizens here in the city, as well as the entire county. So too many of our communities, we know there are parents, grandparents, children, adults are afraid of going out on the street and afraid of being shot, and or have lost someone who has been a victim of crime. So far too many of our children and young adults are being lost, and we have to do something, obviously, to make sure that we're holding those people responsible. So I believe very strongly that we need to do more to educate the community about the penalties for illegal gun possession, in the hope that this information will lead our youth and our young adults to make better decisions in order to avoid the loss of freedom and future opportunity. And I think that's something that we need to do in our schools, to remind these kids what the law is. And sometimes kids think, well, I was just with him, or I just held it. I just held the gun and I just passed it to him. Well, they don't understand the law of accountability, right? And the fact that just because they only handled the gun, that they too will be found responsible and held accountable for whatever crime is committed. So I think it's important that the kids in school today need to know what the laws are, and the fact that how quickly something could happen and how quickly something could change your life. So we'll do whatever is possible to tackle the gun violence issue, and we know that arrest and prosecution and incarceration aren't the only solution, right? They're not the only solution, and we know we have the issues when people say, oh, you want to increase penalties, but what about the prisons and those questions? But I think, you know, it's such a multifaceted problem. You know, how do we handle this? How do we tackle this? So it takes, I think, everybody's action, you know, whether you're in government, whether you're in the educational system, whether you're in business. I think it's a community effort. I think it's community involvement to make sure that we're doing the right things and having the right laws in place. Over the last decade, the Cook County State's Attorney's Office has embraced the concept of balance and restorative justice. And that's the philosophy in which we run juvenile court, balance and restorative justice. And what is balance and restorative justice? The philosophy is to divert the juvenile offenders into community-based programs rather than see them enter the criminal justice system. Because we all know, you know, if you can get to this kid at a young age and get him off the path that he might be taking, that's the time to get to him, right? And that's the time to get through to him. We're always going to see those career criminals at 26 in California. It's going to happen. But if we can touch these kids at a young age and divert them and get them into programs and community-based programs to keep them out of the system, then I think we're all better for it. Not just them and their lives, but I think the community as a whole is all better for it. So balance and restorative justice is just that. It's a collaborative effort involving the courts, prosecutors, public defenders, and community members and agencies that all get together to really help to get these kids into a program, a diversion program, so that they're not over at the juvenile detention center, and so they're not in that cycle of keep coming back to court. Simply put, we try to reach delinquent, at-risk kids in a meaningful way without bringing them into the court system. As the agency responsible for balancing the safety of community with the criminal actions of the juvenile offenders, we work on a daily basis with our partners in the criminal justice system to assess and channel nonviolent youthful offenders into appropriate diversion programs through balanced and restorative justice. We recognize that our job is not just about arresting and incarcerating juvenile offenders, and that is why we strongly support alternatives to prosecution and incarceration with the goals of protecting our citizens from juvenile crimes and holding the young offender accountable. We also seek to hold the offender accountable in ways that repair or seek to repair the harm that has been caused by their particular actions. My staff in the Juvenile Justice Bureau works extensively with schools and community organizations to provide alternatives like peer juries
mediation opportunities, and peace circles. You know, peer juries are obviously a jury of your peer, but other kids their age, to look at what the offense is. You know, how has it hurt the particular victim, and what can be done to restore that victim, and what can be done to make sure that this child doesn't do this again. So that is something that we work on each and every day, you know, at juvenile court. These methods involve bringing the youthful offender into a group environment for frank discussion about the effects and consequences of their criminal behavior within their schools and their community settings. And I think that's what's most important, is to get these kids to realize what they did. You know, maybe they just decided they were going to tag, you know, graffiti someone's garage, you know, but maybe if they sit down in the same room with that senior citizen whose garage was tagged, and hear, you know, how much it hurt him, and how much she or he had to pay to get it repainted, and the effect that they're, you know, maybe 10 minutes of spray paint, the consequences of that, and if you can get these kids to realize that their little action, you know, although maybe when they did it, it was fun and everybody laughed, what effect it has on the victim and it has on the community. And that's the focus when you're talking about balance and restorative justice. So we are partners with the Cook County Board in Project Reclaim. Project Reclaim is funded by a community block grant funding from the Illinois Criminal Justice Authority, who's been quite generous with funding various programs that we work with through our juvenile court system. Project Reclaim was designed with the recognition that there are many levels of delinquent and criminal behavior among our youth. Some can be effectively handled in a program without juvenile court involvement, while others, more serious, require supervision of the court. And I think that's obviously what we see. You see kids who are, you know, committing graffiti, but you also see kids who are shooting people. There are kids there in the juvenile detention center who have cases pending that are murder cases, sexual assault cases. You see those serious crimes, but you also see the retail theft, you know, criminal damage to property, something to that effect, or maybe a simple assault, something that doesn't rise to the level of a very serious felony offense. So we have 8 partner agencies from throughout Cook County that receive funding under Project Reclaim. And that work is being done each and every day, and it's been tremendous, and it's been a great partnership for us. The services that are being utilized are wide-ranging, from substance abuse counseling, mental health treatment, to conflict resolution, shoplifting prevention, curfew violation programs. So we see it all in Project Reclaim. And these efforts include the use of some very creative alternative strategies, including the use of peace circles. And I think you guys might have already, I understand there's a committee that you guys have created. We might be talking about peace circles and what are peace circles. And when I first heard the concept of peace circles, I wasn't quite sure exactly what the peace circle was, but the peace circle we have seen to be quite effective. And I think it works, in some communities it works better than others. And again, I don't think every crime could be reverted out or handled in a peace circle. But certain cases, I think, absolutely can benefit from a peace circle. And what happens in the peace circle is comprised of the offender, the youth. We have parents, we have teachers, we have law enforcement officials, and peers, other juveniles. And the peace circle participants address the issue at hand and explain to the offender how the actions have impacted the victim and the community. So it's an opportunity for the youthful offender to come face to face with the victim. Maybe he stole someone's car. Maybe he burglarized someone's car. And it's an opportunity for him to sit down with that owner of the car and talk about, and hear directly from that owner, that victim, how this particular crime impacted him. How it made him feel. How, maybe money, maybe it's money that he lost or money he had to use to repair something. And so it's putting everybody in the room together and to pretty much talk it out. And to hear the effect of their actions. And hopefully, obviously, what we attempt to achieve through peace circles is that the kid really realizes the consequences of his actions and realizes what impact he has made on the community, on the victim, on his parents, maybe grandparents, maybe teachers, whoever it might be. So it's very interactive. And it's a way to basically put everything out on the table, and hopefully the kids can talk this out, and they come up with solutions, and they come up with recommendations as to how to handle this. Because as we said, if we do something in a peace circle, that case is not going into the court system, and it's not going to be, the kid isn't going to be going in front of a judge every day or every month, and that sort of thing. So it's like, how do we resolve this? What's the best way to resolve this? What's the best solution? And you look, there are many different things that could come out of it. Maybe it's community service. Maybe it's making him go back and paint that garage that he just graffitied. Maybe it's something to go back and help him clean that car that he had stolen or broken into. Or writing a paper that outlines everything that he did, what he's learned from this experience, what he can take from this experience, and how he intends to better himself to make sure he doesn't find himself back in this situation. And sometimes it's just simply a simple apology. Sometimes what you'll see and what we've found with our victims at juvenile court is that most of the victims, they're not, out for blood, so to speak, They don't really want to see this kid locked up. They don't really want to see his life go down the wrong path. Sometimes a simple apology is all they need. And sometimes that face-to-face apology, has more weight than making a judge tell you go apologize to this victim. So that's what occurs in peace circles. And we have found that they've been effective. And in fact, just recently, we used the peace circle for the first time, because we've never done this before, on the adult side, because there was a case that was pending, and you've probably heard about it. It was Southside. It was two of the offenders were juveniles, and one was an adult simply because of his age. He was 18, which made him an adult. And they were charged with misdemeanor battery, and this was the case where the offender was a racial incident where the young man, they made a noose. You probably heard about it. And there were 3 offenders, and the victim was African American. The 3 offenders were white. And in that particular case, we determined, based on discussions with the victim and his family, his mom, and all of the offenders involved, to use a peace circle in that particular case. 2 juvenile offenders and 1 adult simply because of his age. And that was the first time that we used that with an adult offender. And it went quite well. And the victim was actually quite, well, he agreed to it. We're not going to do this without the victim agreeing to it. And we found that to be quite effective. So it could be effective, and we could make sure that everybody involved in this case, went away with a sense of, relief and the sense that something has happened and something will happen, and hopefully we won't see this again. So we learned that providing kids with the ability and opportunity to take direct responsibility for their actions is proving much more beneficial to the long-term safety of our community and more costly, other than the more costly option, right, of incarcerating these kids in the juvenile detention system. But we also recognize the most youthful offenders will be returning to their communities, and many cases in the same block, in school, or home where the crime may have occurred. So in meting out justice, it is our highest priority to take into account all of the stakeholders, which means the victim, the community, and the juvenile offender. I did want to share with you some stats because I think it's important, just so you are aware when we're talking about what are the numbers at juvenile court. Presently, there are 250 youths in our juvenile detention center. That number is down. In fact, 10 years ago, it was probably twice that. So 250 is the lowest number it has been in the last 10 years. 250, which is a good thing. 70 of those offenders out of that 250 are kids who have something pending in the felony trial division. So when I say that, those cases are the most serious cases, okay? Those cases are gonna be murders and shootings and the most serious cases. So that's the lowest number it's been. We have been looked at by other jurisdictions as a model. In fact, Minnesota was just here 2 weeks ago to study our juvenile court system and look at the detention center to see what are we doing, what can they do better over there to reduce their numbers. And just so, I'm just going to give you these stats from last year so you can kind of get an idea of what we will deal with at juvenile court. In 2012, there were 16,167 cases referred to us by the Chicago Police Department and the suburban municipalities, because we cover the entire Cook County. So 16,167. We only filed 6,115 cases. We rejected, not filed 7,512. But out of the 6,115 cases, which we actually took in, we diverted out 2,540 of them. So you can see that we're taking in less cases, and every year we're taking in less cases, and we're also taking advantage of the diversion